Somewhere in a warehouse, right now, there are paintings worth $500 million that no one can legally sell, display, or even admit to owning. Somewhere in a forest outside Antwerp, a discarded salami sandwich brought down the most sophisticated diamond theft in human history. Somewhere along the Columbia River, a bundle of cash quietly rotted for 8 years before anyone found it. And when scientists finally tested it, the results rewrote everything investigators thought they knew. These are the heists that were never solved. Not because the thieves were lucky, because they were, in a few extraordinary cases, genuinely smarter than every system designed to stop them. And in other cases, the truth was buried on purpose. You have heard of some of these. You think you know the stories, but the version you know is almost certainly missing the detail that changes everything. Start with the building. The Antwerp Diamond District sits in the center of Belgium, and for decades it has processed more than 80% of the world's rough diamonds. The vault inside 911 Schupstraat, part of the Antwerp Diamond Center, was not just a room with a lock. It had a magnetic alarm system, a seismic detector, a Doppler radar, infrared heat sensors, a private security guard on every floor, and a lock with 100 million possible combinations that was considered unbreakable by every expert who had assessed it. The vault was, by all reasonable measures, impenetrable. The crew that robbed it spent 18 months preparing. They went by code names: Speedy, the Monster, the King of Keys, and the Genius. Their leader, Leonardo Notarbartolo, had rented office space inside the Diamond Center itself more than a year before the job and posed as a legitimate diamond trader the entire time. He wasn't casing the building from the outside. He was working inside it, building relationships, learning routines, watching the guards change shifts, and gradually mapping every weakness in the system from within. The magnetic alarm was the most sophisticated obstacle. It worked by maintaining a constant connection between two metal plates. If anything disrupted the magnetic field, the system triggered. The crew discovered that the alarm was routinely switched off during business hours for maintenance, and during one of those windows, they accessed the plates and pressed them together with double-sided tape. The detector still read the connection as intact. The most advanced alarm in the building had been beaten with hardware store tape, and no one noticed until it was far too late. On the night of February 15, 2003, the team entered the vault and spent an estimated 12 hours working through safe deposit boxes. When Belgian authorities eventually calculated the losses, the total came to somewhere between $100 million and $400 million in diamonds, gold, jewelry, and cash. The range itself tells you how chaotic the aftermath was. No one could even agree on what had been taken, because many of the boxes had contained assets their owners couldn't declare. The crew drove north toward the Netherlands and stopped to dispose of their trash in a forest near the E19 motorway. A local farmer found the bags the following morning. Inside was the wrapping material, the tools, the double-sided tape, the evidence of the meticulous preparation, and a salami sandwich. Notarbartolo's DNA was on it. The entire operation, 18 months of planning, $100 million in diamonds, the most sophisticated vault penetration in European history, collapsed because one man had not finished his lunch. Notarbartolo was convicted and sentenced to 10 years. He served less than 3. He maintains even now that the heist was an inside job commissioned by a diamond merchant who used the robbery to steal his own insured gems, and that he was merely the scout, not the mastermind. The full crew was never identified. The diamonds were never recovered. No one knows where they went. The Gardner Museum theft in Boston works differently. It does not haunt you because of what the thieves took. It haunts you because of what they left behind. On March 18, 1990, 2 men dressed as Boston police officers knocked on the side door of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum at 1:24 in the morning. They told the security guard on duty that they were responding to a disturbance. He buzzed them in. Within minutes, both guards had been handcuffed to pipes in the basement. The thieves then had 81 uninterrupted minutes inside one of the most significant private art collections in the world. They took 13 works, a Vermeer, 3 Rembrandts, 5 Degas sketches, a Manet, a Chinese bronze gu, an ancient beaker with little obvious resale value, an eagle-shaped bronze finial from a Napoleonic flag. The total estimated value today exceeds $500 million, making it the largest property theft in recorded history. What they did not take is more revealing than what they did. Hanging in the Dutch room, in the exact spot where they pulled two of the Rembrandts from the wall, was Rembrandt's self-portrait, age 23. It is the painting that had originally inspired Isabella Stewart Gardner to found the museum. It is worth more than most of what they took. They walked past it. Art experts who have analyzed the theft for decades almost universally agree that the thieves were not professionals, not experts, and had almost certainly been given a specific list by someone who knew exactly what to request, and that the person who made that list was not a sophisticated collector, because no sophisticated collector would have walked past that self-portrait. Here is the detail almost no one tells you. Isabella Stewart Gardner's will contains a clause that forbids the museum from rearranging, removing, or adding to the collection. The empty frames that hang in the Dutch room today, hollow gold rectangles where the Rembrandts used to be, are not a curatorial tribute to the missing paintings. They are a legal obligation. The crime scene cannot be altered. It is frozen exactly as the thieves left it, and it will remain that way until the paintings are returned or the legal structure of the museum fundamentally changes. The FBI has offered a reward of $10 million. The theft is now 35 years old. No arrests have ever been made. The identities of the two men remain completely unknown. Go back further. Go to Nice, France, 1976, to a heist so brazen that the mastermind behind it later became a folk hero, published a memoir, and escaped prison by jumping out of a courthouse window onto a waiting motorcycle. Albert Spagheri was a former paratrooper with a talent for logistics and a complete disregard for the conventional. He had identified the Société Générale branch in Nice as a target and spent months planning a tunnel approach from the city's sewer system into the vault beneath the bank. But before he committed to the plan, he needed to confirm one thing: whether the vault had a sound or vibration alarm that would trigger underground movement. His solution was elegantly simple. He rented a safe deposit box inside the bank. He placed a loud mechanical alarm clock inside it, set to go off at midnight. He left. Nothing happened. No security response, no alarm, no call. The vault had no acoustic detection system whatsoever. He knew because he had tested it with a $5 clock. The tunnel took months to dig. The crew broke through the vault floor on a Friday night and spent the entire weekend inside. They set up folding tables and camp chairs. They ate picnics. They slept on air mattresses. They worked methodically through more than 400 safe deposit boxes over roughly 40 hours, taking cash, gold, jewelry, and documents totaling an estimated 60 million francs. Before they left, they wrote a message on the vault wall: sans armes, ni haine, ni violence. Without weapons, neither hatred nor violence. And in a detail almost never mentioned in any account of this crime, each letter of that message was reportedly formed by a different gang member, so that no individual's handwriting could be forensically analyzed. The tunnel almost killed them. Heavy rain on Sunday caused the city's sewer system to back up, and water began rising in the passage before they had finished. They rushed the last of the loot out through flooding tunnels and sealed the entrance behind them. When the bank opened Monday morning and staff discovered the vault, French police called it the most audacious robbery in European history. Spagheri was eventually identified and arrested. During his trial, at a meeting with the examining magistrate, he asked to open a window for air. The magistrate agreed. Spagheri jumped from the third-floor window, landed on the roof of a car parked below, rolled off, and climbed onto a waiting motorcycle. He fled to Argentina. He died a free man in 1989. The money was never recovered. The Baker Street Tunnel robbery in London, 1971, is remembered by most people as a clever caper involving a weekend break-in through a rented shop. What is almost never discussed is the reason you did not read about it in the British press when it happened. A radio amateur named Robert Rowlands was scanning frequencies late on the night of September 11, 1971, when he picked up a two-way radio conversation. The voices were calm and methodical. They were talking about money, stacks of it, hundreds of thousands of pounds. They were clearly inside somewhere, and they were working through safety deposit boxes. Rowlands called the police immediately. The Metropolitan Police knew the transmission was live. Rowlands, based on the signal range of the walkie-talkie equipment being used, calculated that the vault being robbed had to be within roughly 1 mile of his flat in Wimpole Street. Police searched more than 170 banks across a 10-mile radius. They did not find the vault being robbed in time. The thieves escaped with an estimated £3 million in cash, jewelry, and documents, the equivalent of more than £40 million today. The reason the story nearly vanished is the D notice. The British government issued a DA notice, a formal request to news organizations to suppress coverage in the interest of national security, almost immediately after the robbery was reported. British editors complied. The heist was barely covered for days. When the story eventually leaked, the explanation offered was that some of the stolen safe deposit box contents might compromise ongoing intelligence operations. The rumor that persisted for decades was more specific, that the boxes had contained photographs linking senior establishment figures, possibly members of the royal household or government, to a prominent London vice ring. No one has confirmed this officially. The boxes were never publicly inventoried. The full contents were never disclosed. 3 of the 4 men eventually convicted served short sentences. The majority of what was stolen was never recovered. No one ever confirmed what was in those boxes. No one ever officially explained the D notice. And no one with knowledge of what was suppressed has ever spoken on the record. Then there is the case that refuses to close. The case with a name that isn't even real. On November 24, 1971, a man using the name Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon. He was calm. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He handed a flight attendant a note explaining that he had a bomb in his briefcase. He demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. When the plane landed in Seattle, he released the passengers in exchange for the money and the chutes. Then, he ordered the pilots to fly toward Mexico City at low altitude and low airspeed. Somewhere over the mountains of Washington State, during the flight south, he opened the rear air stair of the Boeing 727 and jumped into the darkness. The FBI launched one of the most extensive searches in American aviation history. They found nothing. No body, no parachute, no evidence of landing. The case remained completely open. In 1980, a boy named Brian Ingram was digging on the banks of the Columbia River near Tina Bar when he found 3 bundles of deteriorating bills. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money exactly. The discovery rewrote the accepted theory that Cooper had died on impact somewhere in the mountains, because it suggested the money had ended up in the river. Investigators concluded the bills had been buried there and gradually eroded into the bank. In 2017, a research team conducted a microscopic analysis of algae deposits on the recovered bills. The diatom species they found, microscopic organisms whose populations bloom in specific seasons, were characteristic of a summer bloom, not a November one. The bills had entered the water months after the hijacking, not in November 1971, but sometime the following summer at the earliest. That single finding quietly destroys most of the geographic theories built around where Cooper might have landed. If the money entered the river in summer, it did not fall there on the night of the jump. It arrived later, through means that have never been explained. More than 800 suspects have been investigated. The case was officially made inactive by the FBI in 2016, though tips are still accepted. No one has ever been charged. No one has ever convincingly identified who Dan Cooper was. The name itself was a mistake. Journalists wrote D.B. Cooper based on a miscommunication with a police source, and the name stuck to a man who never used it. The thing these cases share is not incompetence. It is not luck. In each of them, there is a moment where the gap between what we know and what actually happened becomes unbridgeable. A discarded sandwich that could have been buried, frames that by law cannot move, a courthouse window a man was never supposed to reach, a D notice that buried a story for weeks, algae on weathered bills that rewrites a timeline. Each case reached a point where the evidence that remained was just enough to ask the question and never quite enough to answer it. The diamonds from Antwerp are almost certainly gone, cut, recut, sold into markets with no documentation, untraceable by design. The Gardner paintings have been described as too famous to sell openly and too valuable to destroy, which means they are, according to investigators, almost certainly still intact somewhere, in a storage facility, a private collection, a vault no different from the one they were taken from. The Nice money circulated for decades through channels that were never traced. The Baker Street boxes held secrets that someone with enough access to a government press office, decided the public should never know. And Cooper, whoever he was, stepped off a staircase into the dark and was never seen again. You started this by being told about paintings worth $500 million that no one can legally sell. Here is what you now know that you did not know before. Those paintings are almost certainly not lost. They are not destroyed. They are somewhere warm and dry, framed and lit the way their owners want them lit, watched by someone who knows exactly what they are. The real mystery was never whether the thieves got away. Most of them did. The mystery is what the people who arranged these thefts, the ones whose names never appeared on police reports, whose faces never showed on security footage, whose lists told inexperienced thieves to take the bronze beaker and leave the self-portrait. What they have been doing all this time with everything they took. And the answer to that, unlike the heists themselves, may never come with a clue.